please identify yourself and your organization? I will start over here. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Tim Schwab. I work for Food and Water Watch for a national advocacy group. Yesterday, my organization released an issue brief that documented the millions of dollars in funding that the National Academy receives from companies like Monsanto and DuPont. It shows how the Academy allows these companies to sit on organizational boards overseeing the Academy's work on GMOs, and with all due respect, engages deeply unbalanced committees of authors for its reports, where many have financial ties to the biotech industry or work on development or promotion of GMOs. So while I understand that the mission is to provide independent, objective advice to the government, as you noted earlier, I think there's some questions about that. The Federal Advisory Committee Act specifically requires the Academy to manage and disclose conflicts. Good science, I think, would agree with that requirement. The Academy has really failed in this regard. So the question is really just a response to the issue brief we released yesterday, and maybe just a note that the Academy may dispute that its extensive ties to industry have influenced its work, but even setting aside the copious evidence to the contrary, the National Research Council must still contend with the appearance of a conflict of interest and understand that from the public's perspective, such an appearance compromises the integrity of the NRC as a credible science-based organization.
I should respond to that first, and thank you for sending us that brief. You know, I've been around in the world of genetically engineered crops for a very long time, and I've seen this kind of thing go on. And I do really appreciate the perspective of being really careful about conflict of interest, because I could see how that gets in the way. It can. But I want to say that, you know, people don't like to hear some things that they don't want to hear, and sometimes I feel like I have been silenced because of that. And I just want to bring back, you know, earlier years when I was working on genetically engineered crops, some of the companies wouldn't give me seeds to do my studies. And somebody in industry even did an analysis of my approach to cropping. And they concluded that I was advocating socialist farming practices. And, you know, that hurt a little bit, but my skin has gotten a little thicker, and I understand the motivation sometimes behind that. People are worried about what I might have said about those crops. And over the years, I've seen a lot of different things happening. And, you know, we invited you to our first meeting. And actually, you talked a lot about these conflicts of interest. And actually, that's what motivated us to have a special section in our webpage to address where the studies were done, so that the public could then view them and decide for themselves what they were trusting in terms of the evidence. So I thought that, you know, there's a contribution that can be made by an organization like yours. But I have to say that I was a little, well, taken aback that now if you are an employee of the Nature Conservancy, you are considered to be pro-GMO. And I think that there are a number of people on the committee who feel that they were mislabeled. And you know, when you come up with 50% of our committee is influencing us from industry, and one of the people was never at any of the meetings, it's a little bit difficult to accept that. So I would say that I think that your approach to keep pushing for us to be as transparent as possible is important, but in the same way that we have to back up our stuff with evidence, I looked at the evidence that you have at the back of your report, and I'd like to discuss that with you. As a matter of fact, we are hoping that our report is not just this big tome, but it's something that starts a conversation. And what I mean is a real conversation. You know, there's a lot of talking points that go around, all the way around, from both sides. And we're kind of we're pretty tired of that. And we want to see a real conversation. So I think it would be very nice if people who find things wrong with our report would confront us with the details. It would be nice not to have a debate, but maybe an 8-hour discussion to look at what those details are in the report and what comes, you know, why we came to our conclusions. And if you see something that we concluded specifically that's a problem, then let's go and talk about that. But I think just the idea of getting into these talking points really will just keep us in the morass that we've been in. And that was the whole point of us coming together as a committee, was that we have these different things. And I worry that this kind of talking points that you're continuing is just going to lead to more of it. So we'd like to get away from that, and we invite you to have that discussion.
Yeah, and I'd just like to say that I stand by everything written in the report, and that the millions of dollars that companies like Monsanto give to the National Research Council, that's not a matter of interpretation. The person from the Nature Conservancy you mentioned, that's an institution that takes money also from these biotech companies, and that's a person who goes out and promotes biotechnology and GMOs in the media. I think we did a very good, and with all due respect, a very careful job documenting conflicts of interest, systemic structural conflicts of interest.
Yeah.
And this is a one-sided problem.
Right.
Companies like Monsanto exert influence. Organizations like my own or other stakeholders in the GMO debate do not have anywhere near this influence in the process.
Right.
I think
that's,
Fred,
let me
Fred.
respond
Go ahead,
to
Fred.
that briefly. I think that is an important point, but I actually would like to have a discussion with you to go over your data, because you could always say, well, we did it carefully, and we could say we did it carefully. Let's have a discussion and go through all that information.
A welcome
on the
discussion. The
individual
conversation is
people.
long overdue.
Thank you.